I love surveys, especially ones that challenge our assumptions and stereotypes. That's why I was really interested in the findings from a survey of patients conducted by Carenet Health. They are a provider of 24/7, 365 services for healthcare engagement, clinical support, telehealth, and advocacy for both payers and providers. Their survey, which was called Understanding the Health Insurance Member Experience, was done with over 1,200 adults in the US who have insurance. And these are people who are on commercial plans or Medicare or Medicaid. And the survey was meant to provide an in depth look at how these patients really felt about their insurance carriers. There were several surprising results that caught my eye, so I had to reach out to CareNet, and they kindly agreed to come on the program with me to discuss their findings. Hello, and welcome to Swaay.Health, where we bring you insights and interesting stories from the brightest minds in healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and joining me today on the program is John Erwin, CEO and founder of Carenet Health. I caught up with John at his office in San Antonio, Texas. So get ready to be inspired, learn some new tricks, and take your marketing game to the next level. Let's jump right in. John, thank you so much for taking time today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm super excited to sit down with you because CareNet just came out with a survey not too long ago and had some pretty interesting results. And that's what I wanted to sit down and talk to you with today.
Thank you for making the time. And I agree, the results are really kind of interesting and maybe a little bit unusual. So we'll get through that together.
Now, before we dive into the numbers that I'm more interested in, can you give us like a quick background of CareNet and of the survey that you conducted?
Sure. So CareNet sits at a really unique spot in the healthcare marketplace where we're really a clinical telehealth and engagement company that works primarily for payers. That was our inception. So today we have over 80 leading payers, 28, 29 Blue Cross organizations. And then we recently did a pretty significant acquisition at the end of last year that got us into just short of 500 providers with some of our technology capabilities that we acquired and some concierge services. So we're in a neat spot where we get to interact and spend time with about 500 leading healthcare companies pretty much every day.
And the survey that you recently conducted, what was that?
You know, we like to keep a pulse on the market. It's super important for us. We actually speak to more than 100,000 healthcare consumers a day, actually have a conversation with them. And so we said, you know what, because of where we're sitting, let's spend some time and just kind of get inside what they're thinking. And so that was the genesis of it. And I'm excited about us taking those steps. And I think we're going to do more.
So let's dive into some of the numbers, John. Your survey found that 78.9% of Medicare members and 74% of Medicaid members felt that their insurance company cares about their health and well-being. However, only 60% of those with commercial plans said that they thought the same, that their insurance company cared about their health and well-being. Are you surprised at the difference in the two results?
I was surprised, and it causes you to pause and step back and say, boy, that's not conventional thinking, right? Because we're used to hearing the struggles of those populations and how they're not maybe supported as well as we would like. And so it caused a quick second look. And then I thought about it and I looked at our book of business, and we do a lot of stuff with Medicare and a lot of stuff with Medicaid. And I said to myself, you know, those groups talk to us and interact with us significantly more than the commercial population. And so if you really kind of think about it, they're much more dependent on their healthcare providers, doctors and such, and then also on the plans that they have. So if you really step back and kind of look at it through a different lens, it becomes pretty clear that the groups that need the healthcare support the most are probably getting it. And I think that's a really important takeaway that we want to make sure we talk about, because our experience is that the groups out there are more pleased than we hear in the media.
I was going to ask, John, is there anything you think that's contributing to this gap in, I'm sure, I don't want to phrase this the wrong way, but I'm sure that commercial carriers do care about their members too. But is there something that they were doing or not doing that was contributing to this, over 10% difference in terms of the feelings that members had towards their carrier?
Yeah, and depending on how you do your math, you could even argue it's a lot more than 10, right? You could argue that the difference between 60 and 80 is, a third more. So it's substantial. I would say the biggest thing that we can see is the intensity of the support. A lady said something to me who was they're one of our larger clients. They operate 500 clinics around the country. She said something to me a long time ago, and sometimes I forget it. She said, "John, you have to understand, for seniors, healthcare it's kind of a part of their entertainment. It's a part of what they do every day. It's a part of their lives. And if you kind of think about it through that lens, it becomes pretty obvious why the survey results would tell you these folks are really clued into who's helping them, who's supporting them. And on the commercial side, which we have a little bit of business on that side, and we obviously have our own team members. For the most part, we're kind of going to our annual appointment. We're dealing with our things that are happening, but it's not nearly at the intensity level of some of these other groups. So as you reflect on it, I think it becomes pretty obvious that the more needy of the population, the more that they rely. And like my mom is 80, I think she'll be 82 here. And, there's just things that are going on, and it's nothing good or bad. And she does a wonderful job with it, but she definitely knows who her doctor is. She definitely knows when her appointments are. She knows, what's important. And she pays attention. So anyway, I don't want to belabor it, but I think you're picking up on something really neat, and I'm glad you're bringing it up as a topic.
When I go into a separate statistic, John, with you, one that I found super interesting, and that was that your survey also found that 89%, that's like the majority of people, want phone reps who are, quote, well-versed in healthcare. What specific skills or knowledge is needed to achieve that expectation?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It's shocking what really is required. The amount of terminology, the amount of depth of understanding of daily appointments, test results, what's needed from this activity and that activity. So when we're speaking with our populations, and we don't even quite realize it, the entire day is kind of spent like the same as if you were in a doctor's office. And so having an individual on our team or at a doctor's office that really understands what that person is going through immediately puts them in a position of empathy. It allows them to support and serve that person because they're not trying to figure out what's going on. So I think, and you're right, I'm glad it came out. I'm glad that it's being recognized as important, because I think we just glide through and we forget that all of that medical jargon, all the stuff that goes on is really in its own kind of world. And if we don't spend time really, really with that patient where they are, it makes a huge difference. And what we tell our team is, if you can get all of the basics right, then you can have even better on the relationship front. But you have to kind of meet their need, and their need might be just something very specific. I need these test results from such and such a date. I need this form filled out. My medication refill. It's Friday night and I'm out of meds for the weekend. If you can't quickly assimilate what their need is and solve it really quickly, then the relationship isn't going to go well. So it's a big deal.
And so what it sounds like you're bringing up there, John, is a combination of clinical knowledge, but also care journey and understanding where the patient is in their journey and pointing them to the right resource or to the right place. And then, as you mentioned there around the appointments, just knowing what the path forward is for them. Oh, like, hey, yes, you do have these 2 appointments, but we probably should book this third one. And like that kind of help is, it sounds like that's what they're expecting out of the agents that they're speaking to on the phone.
I think that's exactly what they're expecting, and I think it's appreciated.
You mentioned your mom in your story there about how she is very up to speed on her medical journey and where her appointments are and everything like that. Another statistic that I found pretty surprising in your survey was that over 89% of those 60 plus said using technology to manage their health is important, which kind of goes against the stereotype we have, right? Of people who use technology. Were you surprised at that result?
Of all the things we've talked about today, I would say that was one of the more surprising. And I agree with you. It's we have this idea that that group doesn't want to embrace technology, and I think we're all going to have to start to smash that, right? The 60 is the new 70, or 70 is the new 60, I guess you have to say it that way. And they're very up to speed. I mean, they're using that iPhone. It's become pretty predominant. They're using it hours per day. And yet, we have kind of in this bucket that they're really not tech savvy and they're not interested in tech. And I can tell you now, flipping it over to my father, he had to have the latest gadget. He had every single new iPhone that ever came out, the latest watch. And so whether he even used it or not, he had to have it. So I think we're forgetting that crowd they have time, they have desire, they have grandkids and reasons that, they want to be on Facebook or they want to be on different communication systems. So I think we've missed the mark, and I'm glad this survey picked it up, because for us as a company, what that means is that we need to really embrace that new consumer, which, yes, 10 years ago, we would have said they don't even have an iPhone. And today we think that's ludicrous. They do have one.
That kind of leads me to my next question, John. What are the key takeaways from this survey? You just mentioned one that, we may have to rethink our ageism, if you will. We also have to engage more, or potentially engage more, on these other platforms that are available to these folks. But in your mind, what are some of the key takeaways or key implications from what your survey has found?
Well, I think, Colin, you did a great job prepping for the call today, because I think you hit on a lot of those. So number one, I think a key takeaway is the more involved a population is with their healthcare from a payer and a provider perspective, the more important that service journey and that relationship is. So I think that's a huge takeaway. And then I think the second one is kind of what you brought up, which is this crowd is a lot more progressive and adapting much quicker to the kinds of tools that we think are interesting. And so I think the implication, especially coming right out of COVID, is we are now going to be in a 24-hour, very connected care journey with EMR technology, with a lot of data to help people. We have to seriously change how we think about the market, and we need to bring on demand, applicable, energized service and solutions to that group, and do it, like we do it in this country, which is we do it with scale, with incredible tools, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I couldn't be more jazzed about where that will take us 10 years from now. And I also think, as you know, healthcare can be a little bit slower and more careful, but as COVID showed us, that adaptability is going to be off the charts. And people, are now seeing things and using tools that, I had a doctor meeting this past week, and the question from the nurse was, would you like to come in or would you like to put virtual? And that would never have been asked 3 years ago. So we're seeing a new era, and I couldn't be more jazzed about what it means for patients, what it means for just the support teams. We don't talk about this a lot, but COVID also took a real toll on the providers and the health system. And I think if we can embrace, anything that helps that group, succeed and be helpful, I think they are also wanting to help patients in a new way and online and a now way, but they've been held back a little bit. And I think COVID broke down a lot of those barriers.
Very last question, John. Where can people go to find more information about Carenet, but also to get their hands on the survey?
So carenethealth.com is kind of where we are, and we'd love to see that, and happy to send out information, surveys, anything you guys want. And like I said, just so y'all know, we're going to be taking this deeper and deeper and trying to parse that out, because we love hearing directly from the members. We love the idea that we get to speak with them, and how can we keep asking questions that are going to keep being thought-provoking. And like I said, you mentioned it earlier in the day, these results are not really what we expected. And so it's kind of interesting to see things out there when you really take a pulse.
Yeah, and I love it when surveys come back with something unexpected. That makes it fun, but also it really helps to challenge some of the preconceived notions that we all have, and to the betterment, right, of the services that we all provide in healthcare. So, I'd love to dive in deeper when you have those numbers available the next time.
And we're going to be doing more interesting and topical things, Colin, and we'll happily share those with you. And congratulations on your new role and everything you're doing. So we're very pleased to work with you guys and help in any way we can. We're a great source of info.
Awesome, John. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Colin.
Hey, I want to thank John for spending time with me today and for sharing his perspective on their survey results. My key takeaway from our discussion is that we really should challenge our assumptions about what patients want from insurance carriers. We also need to review the stereotypes that we have for patients who are 60 plus. If you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health. That's Sway with 2 A's, .health. That's where you'll find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you on the next video.